Hey guys, in this video I'm bringing you some Season 8 confirmed spoilers that most of you will be happy about, but before that I'm also bringing you a theory when Jon Snow will be killed and resurrected in the final season of Game of Thrones. And it won't have anything to do with Melisandre or the Lord of Light. This theory might sound ridiculous, but bear with me. So who will bring Jon Snow back to life this time? Before I explain it all, let me just say that it has something to do with Bran and Dragonglass. Okay, Dragonglass, the main reason Jon went to meet Dany in the first place, is a common name in Westeros for the substance known as obsidian. Why is it so special? Along with Valyrian steel, it's one of the two known substances capable of killing White Walkers. Along with fire, it's also one of the two known substances capable of killing Whites, and most of it can be found on Dragonstone Island. Dragonglass is the main reason Jon accepted Dany's invitation at Dragonstone in the first place, in order to mine it and make weapons from it, since without it, the living probably would not stand a chance against Night King and his large army. That same form of volcanic glass will, in this theory, save Jon's life in the upcoming season. We'll get there soon. In this theory of mine, Jon will lose his life in either the hands of a horde of Whites or in the hands of the Night King himself. Basically, Jon will be stabbed by a White Walker and will be left to die, which is probably how the episode in which this happens would end, leaving us speechless and in shock yet again. At this point, Melisandre will likely be long gone and no other Red Priests will be around to save Jon this time. However, we have Bran Stark and we have Dragonglass. Dragonglass was a very important tool to the Children of the Forest, using it to fashion weapons. A long forgotten secret is that the children actually used it to create the White Walkers as a weapon, by transforming humans into them by plunging a Dragonglass shard into a human's heart. So with the revelation of Dragonglass being the substance that turns men into White Walkers, is Jon going to become a White Walker and that way kind of avoid the death? Maybe even somehow defeat the Night King or overthrow him? That's an interesting thought, but no, it's not what happens in this theory. However, Dragonglass will be plunged into Jon Snow's heart and that will save him from the certain death and from turning into white. Basically, Jon will be stabbed by a White Walker and left to die, but before he dies and turns into a White, Bran will save Jon's life by commanding someone, probably Jaime Lannister, to plunge a Dragonglass dagger through Jon's heart. At first, Jaime, or to whomever Bran gives this at first glance ridiculous command, will stop for a moment to question if he's heard him well, but Bran will then insist, and with Jon being on his last breath, that someone will decide to obey Bran's command since there's nothing to lose. A Dragonglass dagger will be plunged into Jon Snow's dying heart and it will save his life. How does Bran know that this would prevent Jon from dying and turning into white instead of actually killing him? How do we even know this would work? To answer that, let's get back in Season 6. Bran and Mira flee while Hodor holds the door. The two would soon after be almost killed by a horde of Whites if not for a hooded man on a horse who came to Bran and Mira's rescue. It's then revealed that the hooded man is in fact Bran's uncle, Benjen Stark, who went missing during his last ranging. Benjen later explained to Bran what happened and how he survived. Benjen recounted when he was stabbed by a White Walker and left to die, the Children of the Forest found him and saved him from dying and turning into white with the same process that creates White Walkers, Dragonglass inserted into his heart. To sum it up, we know that Dragonglass plunged into a dying man's heart after he's been stabbed by a White Walker prevents him from dying and turning into white. We also know that Bran already knows this information, which might, but just might mean that we are going to see Bran saving someone's life with Dragonglass in the final season of Game of Thrones. Will it be Jon Snow whose life Bran is going to save, or will it be some other main character? That I cannot say for sure, but in my opinion it will be either Jon or Jaime who's going to be defeated by a White Walker or even by the Night King himself and left to die. Maybe it's even more likely to be Jaime than Jon, taking into consideration that Jaime doesn't have superior fighting skills anymore, nor superb martial skills, all of which disappeared with Jaime's sword hand. Jaime barely stood his ground against an ordinary Dornish soldier in Season 5 and barely survived his encounter with the Dothraki in Season 7. One can only hope Jaime doesn't get anywhere close to a White Walker, but if he does, there's a good chance he'd lose a duel and get himself stabbed before someone such as Brienne comes to his rescue. Fortunately for Jaime, the kid he pushed out the window could possibly save his life if he does in fact get stabbed and left to die. Bran Stark, the kid Jaime made a cripple in his failed attempt, now saves Jaime from certain death, reminding us again why Game of Thrones is the best series full of irony and complicated character arcs. Whether it will be Jon Snow or Jaime Lannister or someone else entirely who might be saved and kinda resurrected by Bran Stark and Dragonglass, one thing is certain. It's possible and Bran is aware of it. So the good news is, if our favorite character does get gravely wounded by a White Walker during a great war against the Night King, it might not be his or her end just yet. Now that you've been introduced to this theory, let's get into some spoilers for the upcoming and the final season of Game of Thrones. In case you don't want to hear any confirmed spoilers, it's time for you to close this video. Okay, David Nutter, director of 3 episodes of Season 8, basically director of half of the final season, recently shared some spoilers regarding the last 6 episodes of Game of Thrones. A couple of days ago, Nutter answered some questions from the fans on the Game of Thrones subreddit. Before we get into spoilers, let's firstly say that he revealed that he's convinced that each of the 6 episodes will be longer than 60 minutes, which is a good news. Historically, an average episode ranges very little from season to season, from a low of 54 minutes 25 seconds in season 2 to a high of 56 minutes 8 seconds in season 1, while season 7 leaped ahead with its 63 minutes average. Although the 7 longer episodes of season 7 did not make up for the missing 3 that all the previous seasons of Game of Thrones had before, these 7 longer episodes did however make up for one of them, as screen time of these 7 was as long as 8 episodes from the previous seasons. So the fact that each episode of season 8 will be longer than 60 minutes is not coming unexpected. One fan then asked Nutter if anything in season 8 will generate the same level of shock and heartbreak as those last few minutes of Nutter's most well-known episode, The Reigns of Castamere, on which Nutter replies and teases with, "As far as season 8 compared to the Red Wedding, I just have to tell you, hand onto your seat cause it's going to be special." The reply to that probably explains this statement the best. It takes some guts to say this. Basically, if you were crying or were heartbroken during the Red Wedding, season 8 will do the same to you, although it's probably not going to be just one episode, but rather most of them. Make sure to prepare some tissues before the season 8 premiere, which airs in April 2019. Last but not least, Nutter also confirmed that we will see a direwolf in season 8. We all love dragons, but the direwolves have also been a huge part of the Game of Thrones, especially for the Stark children. Ghost has not been seen ever since Jon was resurrected, but another direwolf did appear in last season, although Nymeria's brief appearance did not make it up for the little to non-screen time during this past season. At least we know that Ghost is alive and well, and he's at Winterfell as the showrunners confirmed. Ghost remained at Winterfell with Sansa when Jon left to meet Dany on Dragonstone. According to the Game of Thrones producer Brian Cogman, he wrote a scene featuring Ghost, and the show actually filmed the scene with him for season 7, but they had to cut it for budgetary reasons. We were supposed to see Ghost when Jon emerged from the Winterfell crypts, right after he threaded Littlefinger but before he waved goodbye to Sansa. So somewhere in there, Ghost was supposed to reappear. Instead of Ghost, to our sorrow, the showrunners decided to fulfill their long-awaited wish of having an undead bear in Game of Thrones. Basically, Ghost's role has been cut twice thus far. Instead of Ghost, the showrunners and the directorial episode Battle of the Bastards also decided that it's better to rather include a giant, which in my opinion was a good decision since I don't see who else would be better in breaching the gates of Winterfell. However, I'd be happier if instead of a white bear they included Ghost in season 7, but that's just me. Anyways, the good news is the Game of Thrones production has big enough budget to include all things we'd like to see in the final season: hordes of whites, dragons, giants, and of course direwolves. It's not only been confirmed by Nutter that we are going to see Direwolf in the final season, but it's also been confirmed by visual effects supervisor Joe Bauer, who told the Huffington Post that there's enough money now for dragons and giants and direwolves and much more. He confirmed that Ghost will be back, and not just for a brief moment as Nymeria was in season 7. Bauer said, "Oh, you'll see him again. He has a fair amount of screen time in season 8. He does show up. He's very present and does some pretty cool things." By doing some pretty cool things, I imagine Ghost killing a bunch of whites, fighting alongside Jon Snow and probably saving him, hopefully without having to sacrifice himself. So Jon will finally reunite with Ghost probably early on in the season, and I'm sure we all are eager to see Ghost and his role in what's described as a fair amount of Ghost in the final 6 episodes of Game of Thrones, about which I'm probably going to talk more in the upcoming videos. Ghost's role probably will not be just fighting against the Night King and his army, there's likely much more. Direwolves have since the very first episode been tied up to the Starks and their fates. The main events of Game of Thrones series have been foreshadowed by them. For example, Ned Stark's death was foreshadowed by the very first appearance of the Direwolves. As you'll remember, in the first episode of the very first season, Ned Stark accompanied by Jon, Robb, Theon, Bran and a few other men came upon a dead direwolf. A few moments later, we found out that this direwolf was killed by a stag, which actually foreshadowed Robert Baratheon as stag getting Ned the wolf killed by inviting him to King's Landing, and the 6 pups that were left behind upon the direwolf's death represents Ned's 6 children that were left behind. Jon Snow's pup foreshadowed Jon's true lineage, the outcast of the pack, as Ghost was found apart from his siblings, in much the same way that Jon, as a bastard, was apart from his own. There can be seen many more parallels and symbolism between other direwolves and their masters, Stark children, such as Arya sending Nymeria off on her own to save her life, which is basically Arya's whole story, being forced to flee and be on her own in order to survive. Summer's death, on the other hand, symbolizes the end of summer, winter is here, as well as the death of Bran Stark as we know him. Bran is not Bran anymore, he is the Three-Eyed Raven now. There's much more of that about which I'm going to talk in my upcoming videos about the importance of direwolves and their future roles, so make sure to subscribe with notifications on and stay tuned.